SRG is running a terrifying group up comp with endless combo potential, while BTR in MPL ID is showcasing a draft so perfect that a single enemy mistake instantly turns into a full team wipe. So what's the secret? How do MPL teams keep pulling off this perfect draft every single time? Well, after watching MPL from every angle and after breaking down draft after draft, I started to notice a pattern. Every perfect draft you see, it always falls into one of 5 core team compositions that pros keep relying on: engage, poke, split, catch, and protect. Now I know some of you will say, isn't this just the core main strats you always mention? No, this is different. These are the foundation of those strats. Because if you use a team comp but use the wrong strat, like using protect composition but running a pick off strat, it's not gonna be effective because the comp simply isn't designed to do that. On the other hand, if you use a poke comp with group up strat, it works. Why? Because poke is a slow composition that wins through HP advantage, cooldown, and pressure, so grouping actually amplifies all of that. Okay, so with all that being said, let's talk about engage first. The key attributes of an engage comp are at least one initiator, at least one long CC, massive AoE skill, and a good executor like this comp right here. Basically, this is the team that always attacks first. They don't wait for the perfect moment, but they are the one who make the moment. Understanding this team composition is super important because this is the most common composition you'll see across every MPL and even ranked. Next is poke. This one is the complete opposite of engage. This comp is for teams that rely on tight coordinated play because they're insanely strong in the right situations, since they can slowly stack advantages whether it's HP advantage, position advantage, or skill advantage. Teams that run poke comps usually have strong objective control because their heroes have short cooldowns, longer range, and easy to reposition. And because of that, poke compositions almost always have the upper hand during the Lord Dance most of the time, because they're not looking for a fight, but they will try to always poke someone who gets too close to their team. Like, if your enemy push, you pull. But if your enemy pull, you push. This is a slow composition, so you have to be patient and have an extreme amount of team coordination. So you cannot get horny for that one low HP guy at all because you have to stay focused on the objective. And this is a high risk, high reward comp. Like, you can't have a single miscommunication at all if you wanna run this comp, because this comp can fall apart easily if you're not careful. But if you execute it perfectly, this comp becomes super annoying to deal with because you can build a huge early gold lead early on just by forcing the enemy to recall over and over. Now, if you wanna run this comp, your heroes need to have a power spike earlier than the enemy, and you absolutely need to win the range or the positioning, like this comp right here. Next we have catch. This is a comp that basically tries to delete someone before their whole team even has the chance to react. The key attributes of a catch comp are they have long single target CC, high burst damage skills, and heroes that can get in and out of sticky situation easily. Now, this comp is almost always paired with the pick off strategy. You all know pick off is weak in strat 5v5 teamfights because it only deals with one target, right? So to effectively use this comp, you either need to snowball the early game to build that early lead, or you must constantly force an unfair fights, whether by splitting the enemy up from the flank or kidnapping someone before the fight actually happens to win the numbers game. Because if you just walk in and start a normal 5v5, you're gonna lose every single time, even if you have the exact same amount of gold or level as the enemy. The main advantage of using a catch comp is that they are insanely strong in the early game, because single target burst heroes tend to snowball super easily. They are also really strong in chaotic situations, like when the enemies are distracted, splitted up, or panicking, because it becomes way easier to flank someone. Moving on to protect. This comp is usually used when a team is running a scaling hero as their core damage dealer. Basically, someone who becomes absolutely terrifying in mid to late game but can't protect themselves at all. Like this composition with jungler Sanshin plus Sicilian for example. You know these two are food in the early game, right? Especially for Fanny. So the rest is basically just to protect the core so they don't keep dying. The key attribute of this comp is simple. You need a hero that scales insanely well into the late game, and you must wrap that hero with layers of protection, because if that guy dies, the whole draft collapses instantly. To make this comp actually work, you need strong utility skills that can disrupt the enemy's movement and formations, and heroes that take a really long time to kill. In short, your frontliner must be annoying, your support must be able to babysit, and your whole team must be ready to sacrifice their whole body just to keep the carry alive. So with this comp, your team needs to stay group all the time, and protect your scaling hero no matter what, because if that guy gets kidnapped, or even if your carry arrives a bit too late to the fight, you're gonna lose automatically because this is the most carry dependent team team composition in the entire game. Every fight is played around the carry because no carry equals no damage. No damage equals losing the team fight. This is also why most teams who are running a protect comp usually uses 2 scaling heroes, because if you only have one and that one guy died, you suddenly have no effective damage dealer anymore. So you always want a backup, whether it's jungle mid, jungle gold, or gold mid. As long as you have at least one more late game threat alive, your comp can still work if one of your carry got kidnapped. In my opinion, this is the strongest team composition against the current assassin meta that only uses these heroes and no one else, because protect comps are super flexible in the draft phase. So most of the time, the team running protect will have an advantage and will naturally counter assassin junglers. And lastly, we have split. Not split push, but split. The least popular team composition in pro play because it's just too high risk, high reward. Why do I say it like that? Because this is the only comp that can threaten multiple things at once, especially if the enemy is running slow walking heroes. For a proper split comp, you need a strong hero that's hard to catch, someone with strong objective control, and a strong duelist and a good flanker. With this comp, you want to split the enemy apart and pressure multiple things at once. Basically, you want to make the enemy overthink, like, should we contest Lord, should we protect our main damage dealer, or should we defend our turret? If you do it correctly, you create a massive pressure where the enemy loses something no matter what decision they make. Like whatever they choose, it's the wrong choice. Now, unlike the core strats, these compositions don't fully shut down each other. But like for example, poke is a hard counter to protect and a soft counter to catch. So what I'm saying is, a poke composition will have an advantage against protect or catch composition. But poke won't be as strong as when fighting split or attack. So if you want to get an advantage, you have to try to figure out what team composition your enemy is going for from the first 3 picks and the bans. And there's one hero you can put into literally any composition, Zucin. Why? Because her skill set is flexible. She can protect someone, she can split the enemy's formation, she can poke, and she's good as an initiator too. That's why a lot of teams keep first picking Zucin, because aside from the fact that she can shut down every walking hero, she's also super flexible for the team. And if you're thinking, man, why is this so complicated? Well yeah, of course it is. The topic is MPL level drafting. If you still don't understand drafting at all, you can watch this later so you're not lost. Now that we've covered all the team comps, let's talk about the draft process and what you should be thinking about in each stage of the draft. So first off, the bans. If you got the first pick, generally you want to cover your first pick with your bans, whether that means by banning its counters or by banning other heroes so that the hero you want stays open. If you got the second pick, you need to identify what heroes you would absolutely hate to fight if the enemy picks them early. So you ban them, so you don't have to waste energy dealing with that one annoying hero the entire game. There are 4 types of bans that MPL teams usually do. The first one, and the one used the most, respect ban. Basically, if the enemy is really good on a certain hero, then just ban it, no need to make your life harder. Like King Kong for example. He's insanely good at Fanny and Lancelot, right? No matter who he's fighting, those 2 heroes are always hard to counter and always scary in any situation when he uses it, right? So instead of stressing about it, a lot of teams just ban them. Like the NZ in the playoffs. From game 1 to 5, they ban King Kong's signature heroes don't stop. Or take the LPH. Whenever Sanford gets Yuzong, you already know how scary his objective control and teamfights become for the enemy backline, right? So yeah, to stay safe, Aurora just ban it. Basically, for a respect ban, you need to understand what kind of player you're up against, like what their comfort heroes are, their playstyle, and whether they actually win often on those heroes. The second one is meta ban. Just like the name, these are heroes that are currently strong, currently meta, and annoying to deal with. So you just ban them, like here. Onyx bans Zucin, Yisanshin, and Haya. Zucin is a broken hero that limits the enemy's draft because she counters all the slow walking heroes if played correctly. Yisanshin and Haya farm insanely fast and are really hard to catch. Meanwhile, Alter Ego ban Kalia and Lancelot. Kalia is one of the best initiator in the current meta, and Lancelot is an S tier jungler right now. Banning Lancelot here is also a respect ban for Kairi besides being a meta ban. The point is, meta bans are heroes that are super strong in the current patch and make the game harder for the opposing team, so you remove them to make the game a bit more easy. The third one is synergy ban. Usually done later once the enemy's draft starts to show a direction. Like here, Dewa picked Alice early, and Alice has a lot of possible combos. But the strongest one is Ruby Alice. Why? Because if Alice ults and hits 5 people, Ruby can pull 5 of those people too, making big teamfights terrifying. And since Dewa haven't picked a gold laner yet, RRQ just banned Ruby to make sure the enemy's duo laners don't become too strong. And lastly, we have counter ban. This is when you ban heroes that can counter the heroes your team is planning to pick. Like here, Brand ban Fanny and 1-1. That already tells you brand are planning to use heroes that aren't agile. I mean slow heroes become free alt activator for 1-1 and they're easy food for Fanny, right? So they just ban them to protect their draft, especially since their lineup only has 1 dash. Counterban can also happen in the second banning phase when your team composition becomes more obvious. Here EVOs ban Irithel and Harith. You can see EVOs already revealed their heroes. They are heroes who rely on positioning and needs to dive forward eventually. And also, they have no cover heroes. So banning Harith and Irithel prevents strong flankers from getting into the backline, or at least makes whatever flanker Onyx picks, if they even decide to use one, way more easier to handle. And yeah, that's it for the banning phase. Now let's move on to the picks. So it doesn't matter whether you have the first pick or the second pick. What really matters in a draft is the first pick on your side, because that one pick can literally dictate the entire direction the draft will take for both teams. So to make this less confusing, we're gonna use this simple notation. B1 for first pick, R1, R2 for the first 2 red side picks, B2, B3 for the next blue side picks, and so on. I'm sure you get what I mean. We're just using this to make everything easier to understand. And by the way, I'll be using the tournament draft pattern that goes like this because the whole topic is MPL style drafting anyway. But don't worry, you can still use this in ranked draft too if you're playing S5 and not solo. So B1. For your B1, you should already have a clear idea of what you want to pick. The main thing you want from a B1 pick is you want to make it as difficult as possible for the enemy to answer it. That's the whole point of B1. There are 2 ways to achieve this. Number 1, pick an S tier meta hero that's left open, or pick something extremely flexible. For example, Zusin. This hero is straight up broken, annoying to deal with, hard to catch, and honestly needs to be nerfed again. There just aren't many good answers if Zusin gets picked really early. Why? Because she completely kills a lot of heroes that can only walk. On the other hand, Basha is the perfect example of a super flexible hero. He can be played roam, XP, or jungle really well right now. That means your opponent has no idea where he's going to be placed. And he also fits into a ton of different team composition. He can be put in poke comp, engage comp, or catch comp. So it becomes really hard to counter draft a hero that's this flexible. Moving on to R1, R2. The first thing you should think about is the enemy's first pick vulnerable to something? Let's assume they pick Zusin really early. Now Zusin is insanely strong in long, drawn out, clumped up teamfights, right? But she's really weak against repeated stun because they can cancel her second skill. And even though you can basically put her in any team comp, she's super weak at defending herself because all of her skills are not for running away. Her main skill is more of an engage skill. And as we discussed earlier, engage are weak against catch or protect heroes. So the heroes they want to pair with her later are likely to be also weak to catch or protect too. A perfect example is what Twisted Minds did to counter this. They pick Akai and Kalia. Kalia got picked early is mainly so Zusin doesn't get to walk in freely. Like, if she tries to engage, she can get lifted and dragged away from her team and get gangbanged. Also, the reason why Kalia is picked really early like this is so that the enemy doesn't grab any hyperactive diver heroes later. While Akai is simpler. You see, Zusin wins through insane zoning, but Akai is a hero who cannot be zoned because of his ult. So whenever there's an objective fight or a team fight, Akai can just break the entire formation apart. This prevents long group fights, which means Zusin becomes way less effective. But what if you don't see any weakness with the enemy's first pick like here? Liquid first pick is Anshin. He's flexible in a lot of team compositions and strategies. So what then? Now if that happens, you draft as if you're picking B1, where you want heroes that's really strong, where it becomes a problem if the enemy doesn't counter it. Or something very flexible like Team Falcon here. They pick Lapu, the XP laner king beside Arlet right now. And Basha, a really flexible hero who can be put anywhere and can zone while also outfarm Yisanshin easily if put in the jungle. And both of these heroes can work well in any kind of draft due to their engage, disengage, and poking skills. Basically, you want to make it as hard as possible for the enemy to read your draft, just like when you were drafting a flexible first pick if you can't read the enemy's draft at this stage. Alright, next. For B2B3 position, you generally have 2 options. First, pick heroes that have good synergy with your B1, or pick in a way that keeps the enemy blind to your strategy while not breaking your B1 flex pick. You also want to identify whether your hero is being targeted or not. So if there's a hero you want to take, either because it synergizes well with what you already have, or if you feel the enemy might ban or steal it after this pick. If that happens, you should grab it now before they get the chance, like this. Aurora's first pick was Yisanshin and Harith, and all the junglers that can match Yisanshin in farming tempo were already banned. The only ones left were Joy and Hayabusa. Now, Joy isn't a viable option here because Harith can easily outmaneuver her, which makes it really hard to gank the gold laner if Brand picks Joy. So the real option left is Hayabusa. Hayabusa is also a really good pick to pair with Kalia due to his burst damage with fast backup capability, and he can stick like a glue to his escaping enemy. That's why they lock Hayabusa here before he gets banned. As for Beatrix, she's the most flexible marksman in the entire game. She's a great high ground defender with her grenade launcher, she's amazing at picking people off with her shotgun, her teamfight is amazing because of her SMG and grenade launcher, and she's also strong at poking or sniping down escaping enemy with her sniper. She can literally do everything. Moving on to R3. This is one of the most powerful pick position because by the time your enemy have shown their first 3 picks, you can already see what strategy your opponents wants to run, what their composition is, and even what kind of playstyle they're aiming for. If your R1 and R2 picks are strong against their first 3 picks like this, the NC already looks super obvious they want to run a poke composition to win the objective fights because their heroes here literally can't kill anyone with just one combo, but they're really good at doing the push and pull because they're hard to catch. Meanwhile, Onyx have a hero that loves to dive the backline first when the enemy are not ready. That means there's a high chance they're gonna be using an engage comp, and they also have Zusin, a really strong objective control hero who can be put in any team compositions. And if we go back to this, engage composition has an advantage against poke, right? So if you already have that advantage, you use your R3 slot to support your first 2 picks. The most viable picks for this situation could be XP lane Lapu, Phoveus, or maybe Hilda, gold lane Ruby and Irithel, Rome, Khalid, and Hilda. And here, Onyx chooses Phoveus. Why? 2 reasons. First, 1-1. Every time 1-1 dashes, Phoveus' purple bar feels super fast, so his ult becomes active constantly. Second, he's an engager who can be both an initiator and a sacrifice hero to force out enemy skills or make those poke heroes busy. Now, if TNC keeps picking those poke composition heroes in their B4, B5 position later, they're gonna have a hard time during fights. But if your team is even in power, or maybe worse, at a disadvantage with your enemy, then we're gonna do what's called a pivot. This is where you change your composition in the middle of the draft, and that's exactly why the R1 and R2 positions are usually flex picks because they give you the freedom to twist your composition depending on how the enemy picks. For example, we can see Falcon picking Basha and Yisanshin for R1, R2. Now, even though the roles are already obvious, like Yisanshin is clearly going jungle and Basha is either roam or XP, but the composition is still flexible. These 2 heroes can still fit into either a catch composition or an engage comp when paired together. Yisanshin because of his ult and his farming tempo, Basha because he moves fast and has a strong zoning. The problem? TNC is picking heroes that all engage first too. Everything in their draft is frontline, dive or initiation, so it's already super clear TNC is going for an engage composition too. So if Falcon wants to get the advantage, they can't pick another engage hero, because if they do, their draft becomes even in power with TNC. You see, engage composition versus engage composition eliminates any real team advantage beside the individual hero power. So how do we twist the draft to gain the upper hand? If we check this again, engage is weak to catch and protect, and the 2 heroes Falcon already locked can be placed inside the catch comp 2 beside engage because of their skills. So what they need is a hero that pushes their draft toward catch, not engage, and that's why Falcon's pick of Selena here is perfect. Why? Because she's insanely strong in catch composition. Her first skill gives vision, which lets your team finds a target who's alone or isn't guarded to kidnap. Her second skill has a really long stun, so her team could back her up in time. And her burst is already painful as hell even at level 1, while also making Yisanshin's farming speed significantly faster. So here, they basically twisted the draft from engage to catch using Selena as the pivot. Now for the rest of their picks, they can just grab more heroes that fit into a catch composition to keep countering the NC's draft even harder. And it's much easier to twist the draft at R3 where you've only shown 2 heroes than it is on blue side at B4, B5, where you've already revealed 3 heroes plus a removal of 4 extra heroes in the second banning phase. But remember though, you still need to know whether the enemy comp is super weak to a specific hero. There's no need to twist your draft if there's a game-defining hero available like this. Omega is running an engage composition because all their heroes are the one who needs to get close to their enemy. Falcon is also running an engage composition that's extremely hard to stop because their CC skills cannot be cancelled before the skill duration ended. So how do you deal with CC you can't cancel? One way is to dodge it, but it's gonna be hard to dodge those kind of skills. Or you can pick Diggy since his ultimate can shut down enemy CC entirely. But here, Diggy isn't just viable at all. Because first, Grok is obviously the ROM already. Second, there's Zusin, and Zusin destroys every walking hero for free, and it's really easy to bait Diggy's ultimate. The other option is to make them eat their own unstoppable CC. That's why they pick Valentina, so these two doesn't get confused when the teamfight starts, because Valentina can shut down Falcon's movement by stealing Akai's ultimate to protect the team and flip the entire fight, or by stealing Arlet's ultimate to jump them before they're ready. So that's R3. You either make your draft harder to read, or you twist your draft so you're gonna have an advantage. Alright, moving on. This is the right side's most impactful draft position. Why? Because you can make the enemy misread your bans and your earlier picks. Let's look at this. Here, Twisted Minds already has two strong frontliners, and from their bans, they remove heroes that really threatens their backline. People will assume Twisted Minds wants to play a positioning-based comp, right? So Brand bans Granger, because Granger can be a problem if there's good frontliners, and that's where they get baited. Twisted Minds locks Harith instead, an agile hero, backline diver, and a flanker. So Brand gets completely baited by the bans and previous picks. So in R4, you usually have two choices. You do a blind pick on purpose just like Twisted Mind and bait the enemy into preparing for the wrong thing, or you pick another flexible hero to make your draft even harder to read like this. Here, SRG already has two flex picks. Then they add another flex pick with Xborg, who can go jungle, XP or gold. Now even though the jungler is 100% going to be Lancelot and the comp is clearly going to be engaged, their laners are still super flexible. It's hard to read because both Lapu and Xborg are strong in either gold or XP. So for the laning phase, they're completely safe. They can swap depending on what the enemy picks next. And that also makes the enemy laner confused as hell because they don't know whether they'll be facing Xborg or Lapu in the lane. Now this is probably the strongest position in the entire draft phase because blue side has one big advantage. The enemy has already revealed their plan with their previous picks, so it should be pretty easy to identify what strategy and composition they're trying to run. To make the most out of B4 and B5, you want to either fully counter the enemy draft with these two picks, or build a draft that's really hard to answer by stacking synergy picks so your team has a lot of strong hero combos. You also want to pick heroes that can't be countered by just one hero because there's a big chance the enemy will use their R5 as a counter pick later. Like here, BTR picks heroes that really counter Onyx draft. Alice counter Onyx positioning heroes, Lunox counters Harith and Phoveus. And not only that, the way you counter Lunox and Alice is completely different. Lunox must be bursted or baited before she can use her full combo. Meanwhile, Alice needs someone that can outdamage her sustain. This puts Onyx R5 in a really awkward spot because if they choose to counter pick, they can only counter one of them. Or another example, Evos picks heroes that can jump to the backline to counter Onyx draft, which has damage dealers who rely heavily on positioning. They also pick Guinevere to combo with Zusin. The combo basically works like this. When Zusin lifts someone up, Guinevere can immediately out-lift the target, so she doesn't need to use her second skill first. You see, if she uses her second skill first, it becomes predictable because of the mark. This way, the combo hits faster and cleaner. They also paired it with Lapu, one of the best backline divers right now. So here, no matter what Onyx does, Onyx will be forced to burn their escape skills the moment one of these guys jump in. And once those escape tools are gone, these two can kill literally anyone for free, especially since Onyx is running nothing but squishy heroes here. And Onyx can't even pick a cover hero later because if they grab something like Hylos, then 1-1 and Zusin will be able to deal damage without any punishment. So if they try to fix the draft with a cover hero, they'll just end up suffering in every team fights. Now you get what I mean by a draft that's really hard to answer by stacking synergy picks, right? And finally, that brings us to R5, the strongest position in the entire draft. Because in this pick, you can instantly swing the draft in your favor. You have a lot of options here. You can go for a surprise pick, a power pick, or even just a safe pick depending on what the enemy does. Like in EWC 2025, the Estes that Onyx picked on R5 completes their draft perfectly. Because Estes completely shuts down every hero TLPH has. TLPH heroes are mostly zoner and DPS, not burst heroes. I mean, yeah, Arlet does have burst, but his burst isn't like Eudora or Fanny that can delete someone in under a second. Arlet's full combo usually deals around 3000-ish damage at most, and that can be patched up easily by Estes healing, and even reduced with early game Dreadnought armor. It's the same with Fredrin too. Even though he can one-shot with his skill 4, it's still the same as Arlet, and it's not a guaranteed hit because you can dodge it. Second, Liquid's DPS is an anti-tank DPS. Cloud's damage depends on the target's max HP. If the enemy max HP is low, his damage won't hurt as much as to a tank with massive HP. This stats makes the whole team tankier and prevents Cloud from getting that massive health pool value he usually shreds. So the squishy gets tankier without increasing their max HP, while the tank gets tankier because of the heal. Basically, nobody expected Onyx to suddenly run an Ube strat in this meta, and Liquid didn't have anything that could counter that combo. So Onyx ended up winning the game because of that surprise R5 pick. That's a surprise pick, but what about a normal pick? If you wanna do a normal pick, you need to pick a hero that can realistically counter at least 3 heroes from the enemy's lineup like this. Turkey is running a split composition because these heroes can mess up the enemy formation really hard. But their damage dealers are trash in the early game. Hayabusa is a snowball hero. Cloud needs at least his first core item before he can deal some meaningful damage. So how do you stop snowball heroes? First, you pick a hero that's super strong in the first minutes and around the turtle, so the snowball hero has no chance to actually snowball. And picking Xborg here is perfect. Xborg is already really strong from level 1 because of his passive, so no matter who he faces in lane, he can win the matchup pretty easily. He's also hard to gank and really easy to escape with, which makes it even harder for Hayabusa to activate his snowball. On top of that, Xborg is a flexible hero, which makes Malaysia's lanes unpredictable because both Xborg and this guy are strong in either gold or XP, so Turkey has no clue who they'll actually be fighting in lane. And just like that, 4 of Turkey's heroes got soft countered by a single Xborg pick. That is how you ruin a comp before the game even starts. So yeah, that's it, get out of here.